With Wilds reaching the end of its base game and the expansion on the horizon, what better time to begin speculation on the next entry to the series? But it's not so much blind speculation I want to do today, rather I would like to observe a trend in the development of the series and how it could impact future titles. I'll explain what that means later. For now, I'd like to discuss the generations of Monster Hunter. For those who aren't super familiar with the idea, maybe you're brand new to the series or just haven't played a lot of the older games, Monhun can be separated into 6 generations. Each generation typically consists of a mainline game, which defines the generation, and a portable game which follows it up, and usually borrows various designs from the associated mainline game. This distinction used to be more obvious, with cases like Monster Hunter 1 for the PlayStation 2, and Monster Hunter Portable, called Freedom in the West, for the PSP. But the delineation has survived all the way to the modern day in a form, with 5th gen containing Monster Hunter World on the PS4 and Xbox, and Monster Hunter Rise on the Switch. Let's talk about the differences between these types of games, the circumstances of their existence, and what it means for the future. Historically, the mainline and portable games have been most defined by the system they release on, with the mainline games releasing on home consoles and the portable games releasing on handheld or otherwise portable systems. This has significantly influenced their design. All the way back in Monster Hunter 1, the game contained a handful of village quests and an online town hub, which required an internet connection to access. This online hub contained rotating quests, various vendors, and a ranking system. The game was obviously designed for you to sit down at home on your couch and play for lengthy periods of time. Resource management was intense, manual gathering was required, the grind to obtain equipment or gain ranks was quite high. On the other hand, Monster Hunter Portable was designed a bit differently. The game had no online town. The village experience was expanded to include most of the online content, along with the tavern being added to access high rank and G rank content. The various goods you could obtain from the vendors was consolidated to the traveling merchant. There was no ranking system, and the introduction of the farm allowed you to obtain extra materials between quests. This distinction in design wasn't because of any desire to change the way Monster Hunter plays, but because it was necessary to make the game playable on different hardware. You couldn't have an online town on the PSP, and the nature of people playing potentially on the go or in short periods meant the game needed to be easier to make progress in. In the past, and still to this day, game design is always influenced by the circumstances it's created in. How good can the graphics be? What kind of systems can the game have? Can it be multiplayer or single player? The hardware it's designed for and the technology of the time are limiting factors in how you can design a game. The stark difference of mainline and portable design would continue in Monster Hunter for many generations. While the mainline games, developed for big home consoles, would try to push the series forward in both graphical fidelity and mechanical complexity, the portable games, on the other hand, would push for more accessibility, streamlined progression, and simpler mechanics. Monster Hunter 2 would come with a more robust online town experience, a day-night cycle, seasons, and an ingredients-based cooking system, while Portable 2nd would remove the seasons, expand the farming system from the first portable game, simplify the meal system, and streamline equipment crafting into a form that is more reminiscent of what would become standard in every later game. Monster Hunter 3 would of course add the ever-famous underwater combat, and pioneered the idea of free hunting quests with the Moga Woods. It would also contain a robust online town like Monster Hunter 1 and 2 before it. Portable 3rd, on the other hand, did not include underwater combat at all, and instead opted to refine the existing gameplay of the previous portable games. However, this is where the lines between the two types of games began to blur. They always borrowed from each other, of course, but starting with 3 Ultimate, the G-Rank expansion to Monster Hunter 3, the mainline and portable games would become more similar than ever. And this was of course due to that thing we've already talked about, hardware limitations. 3 Ultimate was the first mainline game to be playable on a portable console. It released on the Wii U and the 3DS. A game that is simultaneously launching on multiple systems is essentially shackled by the lowest common denominator between them. Having to be designed for the 3DS as well meant 3U had to be designed much more similar to a portable game. No longer was there an online town, replaced instead with the portable-style village and hub experience. They did manage to include some of 3's additions, such as underwater combat and the Moga Woods, though. The overall gameplay felt much more similar to the accessible and streamlined style that had become the portable staple. This would continue into 4th gen, with Monster Hunter 4 being the first mainline-based game to launch exclusively on a handheld console. The result of this was that it was probably the least ambitious of any mainline entry. Rather than bringing major new tech and mechanics to the series, its contributions were a little more muted, mainly focusing on combat enhancements and new quest systems. Perhaps not to be outdone by its newfound hardware rival, the 4th gen portable game was Monster Hunter Generations, a celebration of every generation that came with many new original mechanics, though also largely combat-focused. Notably, this was not a celebration of the mainline games, but specifically the portable ones. You visit Poke, not Jumbo Village, and Yukumo, not Moga. The most impactful contribution of this game was the addition of styles and hunter arts, which significantly changed the combat style of the game. You could say it started with Generations, but since it wasn't really a standard game, I think it's more fair to say that it started in 5th gen, that the portable games really started to do their own thing, rather than being overtly tied to its respective mainline counterpart. Monster Hunter World saw the return of mainline games to home consoles, and this came with it some of the biggest and most ambitious changes the series has ever seen. With access to new-gen modern hardware, the game cast off many old mechanics such as loading zones and maps, and paintball tracking. It also brought a much deeper level of ecological detail to the world, and attempted to create a more living, breathing ecosystem for the player to explore. Rise, on the other hand, departed from World's design. The only thing they really shared was the weapon moveset changes World brought. It opted for a much more action-oriented game, and stripped out much of the ecological aspects World had developed. This is largely in line with the standard portable design still, and can certainly be attributed to hardware. The Switch was not a powerful console, and with World pushing the foundations of the series forward so much, Rise had to find a way to follow suit while still working within the limitations of its circumstances. The mainline and portable games have always been distinguished predominantly by their differing design philosophies, in regards to the hardware and tech that they have available to them. While they have borrowed from each other over time, and the lines have often blurred or crossed, they have also grown apart in many ways, and the differences between them have remained evident. However, the circumstances of the current moment have changed. 5th gen is the last generation of Monster Hunter to be truly defined by the consoles it releases on. While World was originally tied to the Xbox and PS4, and Rise was tied to the Switch, Wilds, and all Capcom games release across the main consoles and PC at launch. This is going to be the case for the next portable game as well, with the almost certain addition of releasing on the Switch 2. And you might think that the Switch 2 would be the limiting factor here, but the console has actually proven to be quite capable thus far, and does not noticeably hinder the games made for it. This is an unprecedented situation for the portable games to be in, to the point that continuing to call them portable may be a misnomer. So we have a game being developed largely unrestrained by its hardware by devs who have continually shown interest in taking the portable side of the series in its own design direction. I think it's uncontroversial to say that Monster Hunter Rise's combat is, at a basic level, fun. With its myriad of switch skills and special moves taking Monhun's normal combat and amping it up into a more fast-paced action system, along with monsters that can hit you with huge combo strings and massive area of effect attacks to compensate for this different combat design. Sunbreak also came with the most robust endgame systems to date, giving dedicated players hundreds of hours of post-game progression to work through with the anomaly and curious crafting systems. However, as is customary in the portable games, this came with a simplification of all surrounding mechanics. Rise was the first game to do away with tracking monsters entirely. Gathering materials was the easiest it's ever been, with the usual portable game farm and vendor systems allowing you to obtain huge amounts of items easily without having to get them manually. Maps were designed largely to function for combat and little else, with any non-combat areas usually just being places to get spirit birds from. Rise leveraged all the usual portable game mechanics to accomplish these things. In a world where the usual portable game is no longer a thing though, what does this game look like? I think it's possible we could see a game that is in a way a synthesis of the traditional mainline and portable games. A game that has all the unique combat aspects and plentiful endgame content along with a deeper and more robust systems and world design. I think it's a given that we'll see the return of something similar to switch skills and wire bug moves. These were largely an evolution from GU's Hunter arts, so they will probably see even further evolution in the next game. Support hunters have even made their way into Wilds, originally an addition from Rise, so we'll certainly see them again. I think a fun addition to this system we could potentially see would be the ability to equip them with gear ourselves, rather than having it be preset, or some other type of new customization for the way they behave. Pre-Sunbreak Rise was criticized for having a poor endgame that was lacking in features, so I think that's something they'll be trying to compensate for in the next game, with at least some type of post-game progression system. Rise's maps were styled much more like old-gen maps, and simply removed the loading zones between rooms, replacing them with hallways that connected each one. I think in a new game, they would opt not to follow in Wild's footsteps and go with an open world, but rather take after World a little bit more. Having large and complex maps, but still have them segmented in the classic way. I think Rise's maps worked well for what the game was, but for a game that may be trying to be more ambitious than normal, I think they would feel lacking. World's maps struck a good balance between gameplay and depth, along with being generally enjoyable to play in and explore. So something similar to those would probably suit a new game pretty well. I think it's possible a Wild-style open world could also be chosen, but I'm not sure the reception to it has been that positive, and it came with quite a few drawbacks in practice. But perhaps in being ambitious, they could choose to try their own take on it that improves the places where Wilds was lacking. In terms of ways the game could be more similar to the mainline games, I think it could be the first portable game to pay attention to the ecology. Classically, the ecology of the series has taken a backseat in the portable games in favor of focusing on the core gameplay loop. There's very little thought given to what monsters make sense in the game, where they're located, and what they're doing. But we could see stuff like monsters actually interacting with their environments and with each other in interesting ways, the same way they do in World and Wilds, as well as endemic life, small monsters, and plants placed into the maps in ways that are ecologically consistent. I feel quite strongly that it would be a disservice to the developers to go into the next game and not expect something ambitious. If nothing else, the Monhun devs have always shown a willingness to try new things and push the limits of what they can do with the games they're making. It would be easy to assume that the next portable game will simply follow in the footsteps of its predecessors, but I think an assumption like that would be ignoring the current circumstances. And to be clear, I think this is something to be excited and optimistic about. Dramatic changes come with uncertainty, and we've certainly seen in the last couple games how ambition can come with major missteps or botched execution. But I don't think that's a reason not to embrace those changes anyway, just for the chance of something great. Wilds has already seen great amounts of radical design choices, and I think when looking back at Generation 6 as a whole in the future, we'll see it as a generation of big, game-defining changes that set them apart from any other games in the series. I am perhaps getting ahead of myself, considering we won't hear a word about this hypothetical, ambitious portable game for quite some time, and it'll definitely be funny if I'm completely off. But it's something I've been thinking about for a while, and wanted to get my thoughts out there on. What do you think? Could the next portable game be a big shakeup in design, or will we see more of the same as usual? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching as always. See ya.